Right? Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Lancham Arts Center. Thank you for attending today's Culture Days event and supporting the work of our special guest, Dianne Brown-Green. My name is Jeffrey Nye. I've recently been given the honor to join the team here at the Lancham Arts Center as the gallery's new curator. Let me express what a pleasure it is to join this team. It's been great to get to know them over the last couple of weeks. And it's been amazing to be able to have the gift of walking into this space daily to be among Dianne's beautiful work. It's an amazing exhibition to explore, and it's, how do I put this? You'll notice as you come back, hopefully again and again, that it will provide you with gifts and new gifts every time you enter the space. I'd also like to express my thanks to the gallery's past curator, Tyler Devano, for all the work and energy he put into bringing exhibitions like this to the Lancham. We wish him all the best in his new role at the McLaren Arts Center. Thanks very much, Tyler. Dianne Brown-Green's exhibition, Familiar Waters, is an example of Lancham Arts Center's commitment to recognize, engage, and support Indigenous people and their community. That commitment is also expressed in the town's land acknowledgement. The town of Witcher-Stouffville acknowledges this land as the treaty territory of the Williams Nations. It also is the traditional territory of other Anishinaabe peoples, the Huron-Wendat and the Haudenosaunee. We also recognize the contributions of all Indigenous peoples to this place and commit to a continued dialogue and greater respect for the land we have come to share. This recognition of the contributions and historic importance of Indigenous peoples must also be clearly and overtly connected to our collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our community. So Dianne Brown-Green's artwork invites us to consider how truly connected we are to each other and to the land. Dianne is an award-winning Indigenous artist of Cree heritage. She's a graduate of Ontario College of Art Design University. Her work has been exhibited at the Royal Alberta Museum in Edmonton, the White Museum of the Canadian Rockies in Banff, the Art Gallery of Guelph, the Prince of Wales Northern Heritage Centre in Yellowknife, the Woodland Cultural Centre in Brantford, and the Textile Museum of Canada in Toronto, among others. In 2023, the Whitchurch-Stouffville Museum presented a solo exhibition of her work entitled Kinship to Turtle Island. Dianne is honored to have her work in the office of Conrad Sioux, former Grand Chief of the Wendat Nation in Quebec, as well as other private and corporate collections in Canada, the United States, Australia, and Amsterdam. Brown-Green is a contributing artist to Walking with Our Sisters, a commemorative art installation honoring the lives of missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada and the United States. She's based here in Stouffville, Ontario. Please help me welcome Dianne Brown-Green.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I thought we could start by talking about what led you to become an artist. Do you remember your early work and what got you into this line?
As a child, I was always creative, doodling, drawing in the sand. Always, images would always come into my mind, and I had a compulsion to express myself any way that I could.
Okay. Do you remember your first painting?
Good question. Actually, it was probably in the sand.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, drawing in the sand. And it was fish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find those early experiences with art echo right throughout a career. I remember one of my profs, Dennis Evans, talking about how once he was reflecting on his own work and he seemed to, I think the way he put it was he was scratching the same itch, even though the work might look completely different, right? That there would be this same sort of obsession or interest that kind of echoes from piece to piece.
It becomes, I think, for a lot of people that are creative, it's a compulsion that you want to express yourself.
I think we'll get into like what leads you into your works and individual sort of compositions, because I think your process is really interesting. I think that'd be great to hear about. But something that I was thinking about by way of kind of coming into the exhibition was starting with kind of this space in Stouffville and what brought you here. And I was thinking, like, these in this exhibition talk a lot about the importance of Algonquin and Manitoulin as spaces. But I thought it might be interesting to also hear how you kind of get in touch with the land and those sorts of important aspects of your life, even here. Like, is there a space that you visit or a way that you connect when you're not in those more wild spaces?
I find it very difficult with the more building that's going on. We do, as a family, a lot of walks within the woods in the surrounding areas. We go through, we used to go down near the Hurons, Wendat site, down in that area, and also through the new Rouge Valley Trail. But it's difficult because the land is, I feel we're part of the land.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go further and further to have that connection to the land.
Yeah. And that's something that I think that this work kind of reminds us about the value of that, of being, one of Earth's creatures, right? I think that's one of the important things that comes through the work. So it's kind of like thinking as we kind of get into this. So what drew you and your family to Manitoulin? And can you talk a little bit about how important that space has become to you and how that's reflected in some of the pieces of the show?
A lot of it was to do with my dad's connection to his roots. He wasn't widely accepted and often hid who he was. So for us, it was a safe environment to go to Manitoulin, and that's where we ended up going every summer. And it was quite a journey. We would get there, no floors in our tents, so we would dig trenches around the tents for if it rained. We would fish, really live off the land. And it was actually, there was a powwow that started to take place there that was in the early 60s. And so it was a place we could go and celebrate our culture. And actually, when we would come back to Toronto, because we lived in the beaches area near the lake, and it wasn't a trendy area then, and I can remember wanting my mom to gather up the clothes because we washed clothes with scrub boards or rocks, and wanting her to take them to Lake Ontario to do the same thing.
Wow, okay. When you're thinking about those spaces, like, are there pieces that in the show, I guess, that most reflect Manitoulin in particular? Are there?
I think they all blend. It all blends together because of in my strong memories of fish and water and expansive water areas, and then the living off the land, and then when our children were really young, reintroducing them to Algonquin Park. So it was like another chapter in my life.
Okay, so Algonquin's sort of more you and your children kind of visiting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting. Okay. One of the things that's associated with those spaces in Northern Ontario is that woodland style that you brought into your work. Do you remember when that started becoming important? Like, was it those powwows and those experiences and seeing the kind of artwork and design that?
I think what it was the colors were still in my head, my memory from the powwows. And then I used to paint in very muted tones and watercolor and more realism. And then when my dad passed away, it was like the switch went off and I started to paint in vibrant colors. It was like I had to catch his spirit. And my mom was an avid gardener, so the colors in her garden, so it was the combination of the two. And I see things in shapes, so it was bringing everything in together.
Okay, yeah. Now, you've started to kind of talk about family and how important that is. So these pieces are in many ways very intimate for you, right? And family relationships are reflected throughout the pieces, and some of those stories are in the interview that shows up throughout the exhibition. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about how, I think, what is it about family that kind of keeps you integrating them into these paintings? And it's interesting how you sort of portray family relationships through natural kind of imagery. So I'm interested in that.
I think it's because I think of the families and my relationship, and it's a way of keeping it going and visually expressing it. Family is extremely important to me and the relationship with them. And so each piece does have a personal touch, which makes it very hard if I sell a piece or a piece goes, because it actually feels like a piece of me is going.
Yeah, and that, so for you, when you're making the work, are you thinking about audience very much, or is it more about those relationships and those stories? Is it more about kind of that you in the painting?
Yeah, it's more personal. It's not how is it going to please somebody else. Right. It's more the process. It's not how is it going to, is it going to please, it sounds kind of strange how it's going to please the audience because they are so personal. And for instance, the owls is a very personal painting. It's a portrait of our sons, and it captures the time when our two boys were playing, and one fell. They were wrestling and got an enormous black eye, and his brother is comforting him. So it's their portrait. So it is a very personal piece. And I think it goes into the relationship with the land and the animals. I feel a connection to them.
So that sort of idea of family extends beyond your kids, your parents, and into sort of all of these, right?
Yeah, it's hard to describe, but sometimes the animals will appear when we're in a certain spot. For instance, with the full moon and the loons around it, the reflection in the water, they just appeared. We were in Algonquin a few weeks ago, and on the same lake where those paintings were captured, and loons appeared, otters appeared, turtles appeared. It was all these things suddenly appeared.
So when you're out there, I'm wondering, are you thinking about, I'm thinking of a photographer going out into nature and trying to capture something, right? Are you just sort of being ready and receptive to those moments, or when they happen, is it like, this is a painting, or is it more like when you come home?
No, as I'm looking at it, I'm actually processing it into something, and I have the finished visual in my head, color and everything. So it's like I have a slide of it in my head, and then I put it onto the canvas.
To me, that's amazing, because like my process as an artist is very different, where
I don't know what's going to happen. Like I kind of follow it blindly. But that idea of you having this very powerful kind of, so the colors are there?
Everything. It's completely the way it looks. It's in my head.
I wish.
So, yeah, so that's probably why there's a few artists in the audience who use the same paints, and when they close, spent a couple of mortgage payments to get their paint.
Yeah, and it is so powerful. Those color combinations are so vivid and intense. Like there's spaces where those greens and reds vibrate against each other, and they're so active. Like as people are coming in, you can really get this sense of they're drawn in by the aesthetic of the work and how impressive your line work is, right? How detailed it is.
It's 60 cups of coffee. The more, it's true, the more coffee I have, the straighter my lines. My husband will say, "Do you want more coffee?" And I'm like, "Yep." When I did the circles on the ladies, it was really hard to get the black line completely straight, and it was, I shake less with more coffee. But maybe that's from my parents. They were both huge coffee drinkers, so.
So young artists out there, start drinking coffee.
Yeah. You're not drinking enough.
So related to color and related to maybe coffee, but there is that energy, like there's a very positive, I'm going to say, energy to this exhibition. And I wonder if that's intentional. Like there are darker subject matter that you're dealing with regarding environmental issues, issues related to, Indigenous rights. All of those things are being addressed, but you're not getting dark with them, literally, if you know what I mean. So can you talk maybe about why that is, why you've decided to kind of lean more on pieces that might be read as optimistic or hopeful or
I think it's to draw people in instead of having dark. The subject matter is dark as it is, so I think if you also have dark colors, it becomes very sad and overwhelming. For instance, with the red dress woman, it's the on her dress, it's bright colors because the women had bright, colorful spirits. So I wanted that to bring the viewer in and look at the red dress, not just as the red dress, which is a symbol for the murdered and missing women. It's also all those beautiful spirits. And I think it's also my father's influence and the colors and the brightness.
Okay.
It's a way of continuing him.
Yeah, that's great. I was kind of along that line. I was also kind of wondering how, like, it's almost like a would you rather question, I guess, coming up. Like, would you rather people connect sort of emotionally with your work, or would you rather them take away a lesson or a teaching, or?
I'd like people to interpret it their own way. The one thing I would like them to look at is maybe relook at the land and the water, and that we're part of it, and we need to preserve it, and that don't take more than what you need. the creatures that also need to live off of, for instance, if you're berry picking, you don't need baskets and baskets of the berries. You don't have to pick the best. Always check to see if there's more so that they have food to survive.
Um, can I tell a little story? And it's going to end with a thank you. So while I was, researching your work and finding out more about it, I wandered for my lunch break. There's a little creek that runs just that way, just east of the gallery. And because of those themes in your work, I was looking at that creek differently. And I started to think, okay, how does this little waterway connect to other communities? What animals are using it as a source of water? And how does it connect me to other places personally? And that's sort of an idea, or those are questions that never would have, maybe not never, but likely wouldn't have come to my mind while I'm sitting on that bench beside the little creek.
That's cool.
And I followed that creek using Google Maps to see where it went. Because of your work, it led me to kind of think, where does this go? Who does this connect us to? And it wanders through golf courses and underpasses, but it keeps going. I thought it would maybe be a dead end. It doesn't look like much, but it goes all the way to Lake Ontario. It empties out, or at least one vein of it empties out right at the power station in Pickering, right beside it. And so, to me, there's all of these possible stories that creek could tell, right? And that I think that your work gets into those themes, and there is all of that storytelling happening there. But I hope this kind of experience that I had is something that people coming into the show can have as well, that appreciation for nature and these little kind of moments that can extend, right?
And to really look at nature and the colors that are in it. If you really look deeply, there's more and more layers of colors.
Yeah.
And I think also for kids, or children, I want them to be able to see that a turtle can be red. A fish can be purple and green. It doesn't have to be a particular way.
Yeah. I was running around with a little fella yesterday. What's that? What's that? What's that? And he was pointing at turtles. Almost all of them were turtles. That's another turtle. That's also a turtle. Can you talk about turtles for us and what you associate with them?
Well, for us, it's a creation story that the earth was built on the turtle's back. And so turtles are very, very important to us. And we became super connected with anywhere we saw turtles. So we would also get turtles if they were injured, to the turtle rescue, because they're old ancestors is what we think of them. So for instance, Henry is, we're told, 150 years old, and he is that big. He's the size of a car tire or a truck tire. He's huge. And we go visit him all the time on Opiongo. And his name is part of the question for a job interview. You need to know the turtle's name. So
Wow.
it's really quite interesting. Yeah. So they need to be saved. And there's tons around here.
And the turtle is sort of a sign of a healthy ecosystem too, typically, isn't it? They're quite sensitive to.
Yeah.
And that's something I think you mentioned too, is the importance of color and how it relates to sort of a healthy kind of environment. Am I misremembering that, or is that something that you were thinking of with, maybe it was Nibi Life or?
Oh, it was the color and the water, that if the water isn't pure, the fish aren't gonna have the same coloring. It will change how the animals are.
Oh, okay, so that's in the real world, not in the paintings. Okay.
Yeah. But I want it to show pure. I don't want to show dirty water or dirty fish, like sick fish. I want to show what we hope they are.
And that's that sort of more optimistic kind of approach that the exhibition, and that's what I mean by it being like a gift, is that that you're opening up these conversations in what to me I think is a really welcoming way. And I feel like people who are coming into the show are getting these really positive kind of messages and hopeful messages about what they can do.
Like, for instance, the whales, if you look, there's more shapes within shapes, and it's the whale goes to the land and becomes the wolf, and the wolf protects the creatures on the land. So you have the whale that's protecting the creatures in the water, and then you have the wolf protecting the land creatures. And if you really look, you'll see more and more in there. For instance, where the loon and the wolf are, it's actually, you'll see an antler. Mm-hmm. So you'll see different shapes within shapes.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to ask you about. Yeah. So as you're kind of composing those, or as they're kind of emerging in your head, that's the thing that I find so kind of magical about your process, is how much information, visual information there is for you to kind of get onto the canvas.
And I have a process where I do it backwards. So I'll create the image and then paint the background. So it takes a long time.
Do you know how that came about, or what that?
Nope.
You never got into any sort of analysis of that. I find that really, really interesting, like that. Well, first of all, how you're integrating different characters or different creatures into each other, and that to me is talking about that interdependence, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something I think that Woodland's painting. Yeah. That's a big theme. That idea that we are all connected, that every animal is interconnected, and that you're bringing that out in your own way is really beautiful. Can you talk a little bit about what's behind this too, and where this piece came from? Because it's like sort of like a compendium of your experiences.
Yeah, it's kind of all of our adventures in Algonquin Park. When we first started going, I was pregnant with our first son, who's now 29, so 30 years worth pretty well of more and more creatures. Every time we saw something up there, I had this vision and added it. So it was a very long process. And then the middle piece was to show the color. It's the medicine wheel, so it's all of the nations together. And it's actually been in a lot of places. It's been in McMichael on the giant stone wall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I feel like when I'm looking at it, I'm transformed back to that place and the time that we saw those creatures. For instance, after my dad passed, we saw a moose, huge moose with male moose at the other end of the lake that we canoe on. So he's right up there.
Yeah, this is a piece where younger visitors to the gallery are constantly pointing out things that I'd missed. And I've looked at the painting how many dozens of times now, and it's still like this little fellow. Never noticed him before until yesterday. And that's what I mean by the exhibition being sort of a gift that keeps giving, is, there's always more to kind of come in and have a look at. It's really impressive.
Yeah, when I look at it, I can even smell the water, and I feel like the coyote and the raccoon are following me around. It's like eyes in a painting that move around and watch you.
When thinking about water and the role of water, I mean, that's a central theme to the exhibition. You talked about Grandma Josephine in those two pieces and her mission with the Great Lakes and bringing awareness to water systems.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to kind of address those and some of the symbols within those pieces?
Yeah, she was a very important figure, and she walked around every Great Lake, even through the States, carrying a bucket of water or pail of water in a copper pail. And she was trying to make awareness on the importance of clean water, and they would weigh the water, and she walked, and she was quite a bit an elder when this took place. So I wanted to honor her, and that's how that painting came about. And there's going to be a third painting, and it's going to be honoring the land.
Okay, yeah. Now, family gathering at Two Rivers, which is one of the intro pieces to the exhibition, that feels like a family story to me. Is there something about that piece? And
That piece was my parents passed away very close together within 8 months of each other. And we had a moment to go away for a brief time in the fall. Mm-hmm. And we were at a campground at Two Rivers, and it was almost Thanksgiving time, and the colors were so vibrant around us. And that's how I saw everything, the green, the turquoise, the oranges. It was a positive experience because it was an escape from everything, because it had been quite a traumatic time.
okay.
And it's the four of us, so it's kind of a family portrait, really.
It's very intimate, the way that the birds are kind of gathered around each other, right? That it is so close, and I think that's something that people can really relate to as well. I think that gets communicated very effectively in that piece. Yeah. So when we're thinking about inspiration and people that you kind of look towards, you've mentioned Daphne Ojig as someone who you've come across in your life and has kind of inspired you. Are there other people, or would you like to maybe mention some of those influences?
I would say she was a huge influence to me, and we communicated writing back and forth. Thank you to my husband. And she always told me, paint in your own way. Don't let anyone influence you, paint in your own way. And I would say Alex Janvey, because of his colors. Alan Sapp I found very interesting because he also painted from memory and a lot of his childhood. Doris McCarthy, who we got to meet and become friends with, and so she was a huge influence on her elements of color in her landscapes.
That's a good list. Amazing people, amazing work, and you do see it in some ways here and there, in how you think about the subjects you choose. And, yeah, I think what you're doing honors their legacy and keeps moving it forward, and you do have your own unique voice. I think that was really valuable piece of advice from Daphne Ojig. Mentors. So is there something in the exhibition or something you'd kind of like to mention to people as we're getting close to kind of wrapping up? I might open it up to a bit of question and answer if you're comfortable with that, but Is there something you feel like you'd like to address in the show?
I think it's more to remember we're all related and take care of each other, no matter who we are, animals, humans, the earth, that we're all connected, and to be kind to each other, treat each other nicely.
And I hear you're working again. You're not exhausted by this show completely. You're back in the studio.
Yeah. So I'm working on the third woman, and I have another canvas this size that I'm working on. And I have to get moving on them because the pictures are in my head and I want to get them out.
Oh, that's something I wanted to ask is how long your process takes. Like, are you a quick painter with all that coffee, or?
No. No. But I will get going, and it's a good thing I have a family that can cook, because I'll get going and I'm not hungry. I'll just keep going.
Yeah, you kind of forget you have a body.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Yeah.
I just had one question about backgrounds that you said you often put in later. So the painting behind you, I couldn't imagine that you would put that water and Greenland and so in later. Did you actually do that for that painting?
Yep.
Amazing.
And then I have to do it 2 or 3 times because I want the real opaqueness of some of it. So I have to go in over and over. So for instance, the one with the red drum, which was based on our older son's first sunrise ceremony, I had to go in around where it's supposed to be leather that's hanging down, or hide. So I had to go in between each one.
I was wondering about the fish because the detail, I couldn't imagine not smudging.
So it takes that much longer, and then they have to be dry, and then I have to make sure I don't muck it up.
One other thing I wanted to say was that when you go for your walks in the forest and you, especially after your father passed away, and you saw these different creatures and so on, I'm actually wondering whether those creatures were attracted to you, and because you were there, that they would appear.
Could be.
Could be.
You might make me cry. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, because I sometimes feel that myself, but when I start off, and it's amazing why I might go on this trail or whatever, and then what I do see and what that does for me. So I'm thinking, you know, just,
The other day, our house has a turret where I paint. It's really high up, and it's all windows. And we have, so you can see quite far. And I was looking out, and this was 3 or 4 days ago. And I saw this giant bird way, way up, and I knew it wasn't a turkey vulture. And we got binoculars, and it was an eagle. It was like, yeah. So it was quite cool.
and after my sister's, when she passed away in Saskatchewan, and we were going to the crematorium, and I also saw an eagle.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do kind of associate different animals that they'll see with family members who have passed away. That's something that my wife's grandfather passed away, and not long after we started noticing this heron showing up near the family's cottage, and that was always sort of a sign of his presence. And then when her grandmother passed away, a fox started showing up where we never noticed a fox before. So these sorts of things there's that sort of magic that, again, that connection, that there's something beyond the physical sort of constraints and the science and all these things we impose on the world. There's we don't know it all, right?
No, no.
There's something else out there, and I think that's a hopeful message from this show too, right? That now, are there animals that you associate with personally that in a different way, or some that resonate more than others in some way?
No, I think I connect with them all. Yeah, in some way. Although we used to have a pug, so who I really connected to. So
I wasn't expecting that. Any other questions for Dianne? No? Okay. Well, we are really thankful for having the work here in the space, and really honored to have you here too. It's been a great introduction for me to the community to have someone from here who makes such fantastic work, and I appreciate everything you've sort of given.
And thank you to you, Tyler, the staff, volunteers. Yeah, it's been an incredible experience.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
Thank you, Diane, for sharing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of odd because they all hang in our house, so it's like walking into our home.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention that Diane's image is also now on the library card. It will be on the library card. So. A little extra thank you as well.
Diane's got a lot, I hope, coming her way, and she deserves it. I
Thank
think
you.
That dedication to your work and your practice, really remarkable. So thank you for sharing it with us. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.